After its first day, Dragon Age the Veilguard looks like a complete and utter loser, despite what many people are going to try to tell you regarding the concurrent player counts. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. You can find a link in the description below. You can also find a link to join the channel and help support me in doing what I am doing here in exposing woke ideology and hopefully convincing others to say no to this evil ideology. So we do have player counts for the first day of Dragon Age the Veilguard's release. Obviously, it's still in its first 24 hours because it released noon Eastern time yesterday, October 31st. But we do know that on its first day, it only hit a peak concurrent of 70,414. That is nowhere near the breakout success that EA CEO Andrew Wilson was claiming the game would have during the EA's Q2 2025 earnings conference call earlier this week. He said, "I certainly think Veilguard has breakout potential. Again, 10 years ago, Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year and was a very strong performer for us in the conduct of our business. This is entertainment. And so while much of our business has moved to live service moment to moment, deliver innovation and creativity for a deeply engaged community over the course of time, this opportunity to bring in incredibly high quality creative storytelling set in an amazing world with rich characters living out those stories, you're able to capture that moment in entertainment. Success almost certainly follows." So don't think that's happening because I don't think you actually did any of this stuff. High quality creative storytelling, an amazing world, rich characters. No, it doesn't look like that is the case from everything that I have seen about this game and how they were promoting it. And again, 70,414 is its peak so far. And you can see when I took the screenshot this morning, it only had 44,938 players. And that is absolutely way less than Monster Hunter Wilds, which hit a peak of 463,798 players. You can see that right here. And in fact, it had 432,431 players still playing when I took this morning for the game's open beta. Obviously, this game comes out next year. And I do have to point out, obviously, it's a beta test for Monster Hunter Wilds, and it is free, while Dragon Age the Veilguard costs $60. So obviously, you're getting a bunch of people playing the game for free, but I do think it shows where the interest level is. People are wanting to play Monster Hunter Wilds, not so much Dragon Age the Veilguard. In fact, let's just go back to August when Black Myth Wukong released their benchmark tool. It peaked at 85,277 concurrent players. So the benchmark tool for Black Myth Wukong had more concurrent players than Dragon Age the Veilguard on its first day. Now, I do think that Veilguard will probably have an increase as we get into the weekend. We've kind of seen this trend. Usually it takes 2 or 3 days before a game hits its peak concurrent. We saw this recently, obviously, with Metaphor Refantasio. That game released on Friday, October 11th. On Sunday, which I think, doing the math here, that's the 13th, it hit its peak of 85,961. We know that game sold 1 million units in the first 24 hours. Similarly, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, it hit a peak of 122,554 concurrent players on Friday, October 11th, after it was released on October 10th. That game sold 3 million units in its first 24 hours. So we do know that usually we see games kind of hit that peak concurrent maybe 1 or 2 days after the initial release date. So I do expect Veilguard to have a slight increase, maybe get to 90,000, potentially 100,000, but it might not get to 100,000. If it doesn't get to 100,000, that is very, very, very bad because people have been doing some rough estimates, some rough calculations. They're expecting this game cost around $250 million. So the game needs to sell around 4 to 5 million units, probably even more than that if you tack on marketing costs. And if the production was actually even more, we have seen games like Concord where their 8-year production kind of cost at least $400 million, if not more. So it's possible Veilguard had higher production costs as well. But what we're seeing is people are kind of estimating it's around 250 million. So they have to at least do 4 to 5 million units. outside of any kind of partnerships or deals that they might have. Obviously, we know that these companies do indeed cut these deals. We saw this with Veilguard, with Nvidia, or I think, or AMD or someone like that. They partnered with someone to basically, if you spend X amount of dollars or buy their subscription, you get Dragon Age free. So we know that they do have those partnership deals where they were able to basically sell the game through that. So obviously, you got to discount that. So probably still around 4 to 5 million units, I would say. Potentially has to do more than that if the budget is actually higher and based on what their marketing costs are. So 70,000 concurrent is not good. Doesn't really get to the number that it needs to get to. And remember, most games do indeed make the majority of their sales in kind of that first month that they are out, probably within that first week. Games like Black Myth Wukong can obviously kind of buck that trend and will have a much longer tails, given the fact that they are so popular. There's lots of buzz around them. People are talking about it, etc. Maybe breaking into new markets that hadn't been as heavily saturated, obviously looking at China, etc. So that is kind of what we're looking at here with Dragon Age. The Veilguard has to kind of get in there to that range. And we have some analysis here from former World of Warcraft team lead Mark Kern. He shared this over on X. He described that 70,414 peak concurrent as concerning. He described it as concerning. And he also says that it is a sign the game is already, quote, underperforming. And this is what he wrote. He says, it's true, California isn't online yet, but people joining earlier are leaving the game, or you would see the curve stack more. It's about session time. Long-form RPGs tend to have really long session times versus, say, first-person shooter games. But we're not seeing that here. People are logging off after a relatively short amount of time. I think that's probably accurate to say that, right? If you're playing an RPG, you're usually playing 3, 4, potentially even longer than that. Whereas maybe with a first-person shooter, you could be just hopping in for 1 or 2 games and then hopping out and going about your day, maybe jumping into a different game or something like that. Anyways, he went on and elaborated. You would expect that East Coast would still be playing as California came online, but they are not. This means session times are low, perhaps 2 to 3 hours, which for an RPG on launch day is not great. There is no cumulative effect here as East Coast plays and West Coast joins them. Yeah, usually you see around like 10 p.m. Eastern time is usually the peak, because that is, you still have East Coast people are playing, and then the West Coast people are coming in and joining as well. That is usually the trend that you see, and that was obviously not the case. He goes on and says, it may mean players tried it and got tired of it early. Not good, but I think we're starting to see the Dragon Age bait and switch effect as the gamers look and feel, as the game looks and feel. I'm not sure what he's trying to say here. He says, as the gamers look and feel is very different from its predecessors, as well as the effect of all the preachy DEI that is self-evident in the game. I think he's basically trying to say gamers are able to discern that the look and feel of the game is different from previous installments in the Dragon Age franchise there. When you have AA games with much smaller publishers doing 300,000 or so, money guys are going to ask what they are spending so much more for. I think he's maybe referencing Space Marine 2 there. If weekend numbers don't go higher, this also means that players who tried it today are not coming back to try it again over the weekend. This would be very unusual. So that is what Grums had to say. That was his analysis that he shared on X. Obviously, he posted this at 7:20 p.m. Eastern time last night, and that is kind of where it hit that peak number, 70,414. That is not good. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's the Halloween effect, yada, yada, yada. Well, that doesn't seem to be affecting Monster Hunter Wilds. Its beta, as we said, 463,798 peak. People were still playing this game despite the so-called Halloween effect. And you can look at other games that were out there. Doesn't look like the Halloween really affected their player counts either. When you look at stuff like Counter-Strike 2, etc., that are always kind of at the top of the Steam charts. This does not look good. This does not look good for this game. And it looks like what we've been saying all along. This game is going to have softer sales. It is going to underperform. And it was very obvious as to why this was going to happen. The art style was ugly and disgusting. It had massive amounts of lecturing and pandering. It was full of woke ideology. and they were going to shove it in your face. And this isn't a video game. That's not what it is. This game is a DEI woke ideology lecture. It is a humiliation ritual. It is not a video game, and players are sniffed it out. Many of them did. Unfortunately, at least 70,414 did not. That's a shame. We got to work a little bit harder in order so they won't be fooled like this again. But many of us did see this and did not buy this game whatsoever. Did not even touch it. So that is a good sign. We are having an effect here. Sales do not look good for this game, and people said no to it, just like they have been saying no throughout the year, whether it is Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, Concord, Tales of Kinzarazao, etc. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know what you make of these peak concurrent numbers for Dragon Age, the Veilguard, coming in at 70,414, getting absolutely blown out of the water by Monster Hunter Wilds and even being defeated by the benchmark tool for Black Myth Wukong. And then just to point this out right here real quick to kind of highlight what Grums was saying about AA games having like 300,000. I do think he's pointing to Space Marine 2. Obviously didn't hit 300,000, but it did hit 225,000. And from everything we're hearing from Saber Interactive, they kept the costs really low on this game, despite having, I think, a 4-year development cycle, and they made absolute bank on this game. So it does make sense what he's saying there. The money people are be like, why are we spending money on this game when we can be investing in Saber Interactive, making games like Space Marine 2, where the return on investment is much, much higher. But at the same time, obviously, a lot of these money men, like Larry Fink, they are all about trying to force behaviors. And so that is why they create games like Dragon Age the Veilguard. That's why they fund games like Dragon Age the Veilguard, because they are indeed trying to get you to adopt these evil, disgusting, destructive behaviors. And they are trying to get you to mimic what you see in those video games. But fortunately, people are not doing that. And the numbers here are showing that only 70,414 peak concurrent. Hopefully I'm actually proven wrong and we don't see that number go up at all. But again, let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.